Hello and welcome. My name is Julie, and this is Stamp with Julie Baum. Today, I'm bringing you one of the projects that we made at my stamp club in April of 2026. This is Project One, and we're making a very cute card, Grillin and Chillin. Now, this would be totally appropriate for Father's Day or a dad's birthday, many different occasions that you need a guy card for. I think that this works well for. Now, I did not come up with this design. I did see another creator do the similar card in a red background, and I changed up the colors and did a few different things, different elements in putting the card together. So I wanted to show you my version. And this is, as I said, what we made at Stamp Club. Now, there were 3 projects, and this is project one. So be sure and look for the other 2 Stamp Club projects from this month, April 2026. All right, we began with a cardstock base in Night of Navy, and this piece is 4¼ inches by 11 inches. Now, we made 2 score marks on this, one at 2¾ inches and one at 5½ inches. This will give us our folds. It's kind of like a little Z fold that is required to make the card open the way that we want it to. All right, so there's that. Then I have some Smoky Slate. This is a gray cardstock. Smoky Slate is the name of the color. I have a piece that's 4 inches by 5¼ inches. And I also have 2 more pieces. These are 2½ inches by 4 inches. So you'll need 2 of those. All right. Eventually, we're going to need 2 die cut circles. So let me show you those. I've already cut those. This is from the Stylish Shapes dies. And I went ahead and cut 2 out of basic white cardstock. I've got my scrap here that I'll do some stamping on. Then there are lots of die cuts on this particular card. So we will talk about the die cuts when we get there. But to do the die cutting for this card, you'll need a bunch of scraps in various colors. So you'll see when we go to build our hamburger how that all comes into play. All right, let's take our Simply Scored and set that out of the way. And I think I'm going to bring in a nice big piece of scratch paper to go here on my stamping surface, because we are going to do some background stamping on this gray cardstock. So I just brought in a big sheet of our grid paper, and I'm going to lay my cardstock here. Now, let me give you a hint. What you could do is start with, here, we're going to back up a teeny bit. What you could do is start with one piece of the gray cardstock that measures 4 inches by 11¾ inches. Looks like it. I'm trying to shove this together. And do all your stamping on this one piece and then cut it into sections. So if I didn't have mine pre-cut, because this is how my packets were prepared for club, I would just do that. I would start with one long piece of the cardstock, stamp the whole background, and then cut it into the sections that I need. But because we already have our pieces cut apart, we're just going to stamp them on each of the 3 pieces. All right. I have my stamp here. And what I did is I went ahead and put 3 stamps on this block. So I have the little mitt and 2 of the barbecue tools. Those are already attached to my block. And then we're going to take some Smoky Slate ink and do our stamping. And we want a random pattern all over the pieces. So you can do this by changing the direction of your stamp, or you can simply turn your cardstock piece as you go. You just want to make sure that it doesn't ending up looking too much of a pattern. You want it to remain very random. All right, so I want to get that spatula over there and maybe another mitt. Let's see, let's turn this way. And like so. All right, so we've got that piece. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to fill this. All right, we've got that piece, and then the largest of the three. And because I chose which stamps to put on this block, of course, you could change that up and use different stamps to make a different looking background. I want to get another one of that spatula on there. All right, so as you can see, that step goes pretty fast, and we've got all three of our pieces with our stamped background at that point. All right, we can attach those to our card. Just get them out of the way by going ahead and attaching them to the base. And so let's do that next. I'm going to get a bone folder out also and reinforce those creases. I made the score lines and then folded them, and now we just want to reinforce those folds. All right, nice and crisp and even. That's going to serve us well. All right, with some multi-purpose liquid glue, I'm going to go ahead and attach these. So our largest piece goes on this part of the card base. Let's see if I am going to need to grab a different glue. Maybe so. I don't know about you, but I have usually so many different bottles of glue in use at any one time that I end up with lots of bottles that are half or nearly empty. All right, let's go with this one for now. Okay, this is in place. Line it up, check our borders, and commit. Okay, and then we've got, now I'm double checking something because all of a sudden these look a little bit wide, and I did have some that were wide in my prepared packets. These are actually cut a little bit wider than they should be, so we're just going to trim them down. The measurement that I gave you is correct, the 2.5, but I have a feeling that these are 2 3/4, which we did find in some of the packets. Just a cutting error on my part. Yeah, these are 2 3/4 right now. We need them to be 2.5. So we'll just slice a little piece off of that. And same thing here. We need it to be 2.5. There we go. Now it will fit onto our card base just the way we expected it to. All right, as I mentioned in the beginning, really cute for a guy card. Now, I don't know why. I just automatically think of guys and grilling. Maybe in your household, you do the grilling. Maybe you have a teenager that does the grilling. In my house, my husband does most of the grilling if we're cooking outside. Every now and then, I have been known to throw burgers or chicken on the grill, so I am capable, but he's usually the guy to do that. And I also think that sometimes it's hard to do card designs that are suitable for guys because let's face it, with butterflies and flowers and all the cute things that we like to create with, they end up being very feminine. And so to have something like this stamp set, here, I'll bring in the stamp set so you can see it. To have something like this is very nice that you can use for a man. Okay, so we've got our card base all set and we've got our background papers in place. Let's go ahead and do some of our stamping. So I'm going to bring in one of my circles, and this time I'm going to use my Night of Navy ink pad. And the Grillin and Chillin stamp. Now, the words are just barely going to fit on this circle. And you could choose, if you'd rather, when you do something like this, to have a scrap piece of paper, do your stamping first, and then do your die cutting. I do that process in those steps that way a lot of the time. But because I know for sure I'm using the circle and I do know that this will fit, I am just going to start with the die cut and then center my words right on my circle. Give that a good press. It's a large stamp and you want all your letters to come out nice and crisp. And there we have it. Okay, now I'm going to switch to real red ink. And we're going to grab a scrap of white cardstock to stamp our grill. Now I am going to show you an extra step on this. This is one that I decided that I liked better than some of the methods I saw other people stamping the grill with. So we can see if you like it and think it's worth the extra effort. All right, here is the grill stamp, and we're going to do it in red. Now it is a large stamp, and I'm going to walk it across my ink pad. I've mentioned this before, but often we take our stamp straight to our ink pad right in the middle of the ink pad. And what can happen is you end up kind of with a dry spot there and ink pushing out to all the edges. So it is a good practice to walk your stamp across the ink pad in different spots to get a well-inked stamp. All right, this is going to go on here like so. And again, it is a large stamp. It does require a little bit of pressure. We want it to come out nice and crisp. And there we have our grill. Now, I'll show you the extra step and you can decide if you think this is worth it. I do need to grab another scrap. I have one here. I'm not sure if this was for something else or not, but we're going to use it. First thing I'm going to do is clean my stamp. Get that red ink off. So I'm using my Simply Chamois. This has been moistened with just plain tap water and then squeezed out. So this is very damp. All right. So even though my stamp looks a little red, that is because of the nature of the photopolymer. Certain reds and mostly reds, but some colors will stain your photopolymer. It doesn't affect them negatively at all, but you just want to make sure that you clean it. Even though it might look a little bit pinkish red, it is now clean. I'm going to go back to my Smoky Slate ink pad. And what I'm going to do is stamp just the legs of the grill. Okay, so I've got the legs and kind of the bottom part. That's fine. That's not going to hurt anything. And I'm going to stamp that here on my white cardstock, just right down here, like that. So now I've got legs, okay? Now another thing that we're going to do is stamp our fire. And we'll go ahead and use this same scrap to stamp our little flame. And we'll talk about some methods to do this as well. So At Stamp Club, we used Darling Duckling as our yellow. And I am going to switch it up today because I feel like, let's go back and look at the card. All right, although it's very, very, very cute. It is adorable. I feel like the greenish yellow that you get with Darling Duckling, I don't know, it's a little less than perfect. So instead, today, I'm going to use Daffodil Delight, and then we'll compare the two and see what we think. So in Club, we did use Darling Duckling. Today, I'm going to use Daffodil Delight, and then we're going to take a look at both and see if one is better than the other. All right, to get here, let's move the grill completely out of the way since we're done with it. And we're ready to do our flame. It looked like it had some residual ink on it, so I cleaned that. All right, we're going to stamp it in yellow, and a yellow flame looks great. All right, let's just put one on here for fun to see what it looks like. That would be absolutely appropriate for our card. What I do like is adding a little bit of orange to the bottom, like where the heat is really generating from. You could even do the flame with a little bit of orange and a little bit of red. That would be cool. We're not going to go that far today, but we are going to re-ink with our yellow. And then we're going to take our orange. This is Timid Tiger. And I'm going to use a blender brush. And we're going to do a little bit extra on our flame. So while the yellow ink is on the stamp, we're going to pick up some orange ink here, and then we're just going to kind of blot it on the bottom edges. I'm kind of doing a smile shape. So on the bottom edges and sweeping up each side a little bit with some orange. All right, and then let's take a look and see what that looks like. There we have it. So we've just got a little variation there, and I think that that is just a little bit nicer. Now, I'm going to do this one more time, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to pull up my orange even a teeny bit higher, and you'll understand why in just a moment. So I've got my yellow ink on the flame stamp. I've added orange, and I'm going to come up about halfway. All right, and then I'm just going to put that one on this side. No one's going to know that there's ones on the other side. And we're going to stamp that one. So now our orange has come up a little bit higher. Now we need to do some die cutting. I've done a little bit ahead of time just to save us. I don't want you having to watch me die cut everything for this card. But let me show you how this is going to work. I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Let's back this out a little bit. Now you can see my desk. I have all kinds of things going here. All right, we're going to take our grill and we're going to take our flame and we're going to die cut these. So I've got, where is that? There we go. I've got my grill die. So we're just going to place that on here. And we're going to run that through. I am not taking the time to tape it, but I did see that it slid a little bit. So I'm just going to reposition it, see if I can grab it without having to take the time to tape it down. I might have to. I've got some tape right here. I've got some low tack artist tape, and I'm just going to tape it to hold it for me. Okay, now I think we'll have a better die cut. Okay, part one of our grill is now done. But we need to go back and get that gray piece. Is it under here? Oh, it's right here. We're going to go back and get this gray piece. So we're going to take our die, and we're only cutting out the legs. You can see that I stamped it strategically on the edge of the paper, so I'm not wasting a bunch of cardstock, and I just need to line up the legs. We'll tape that in place again so this doesn't slide. And then at the same time, we can take our flame and get it in place so that we can cut both out at the same time. Now I did pre-cut a flame, happen to have a pre-die cut flame, but I'm cutting this one out for us too because I want to see that yellow comparison. Okay, let's move some of this stuff back out of the way so we can concentrate on our pieces. Usually in my videos, I have everything that needs to be die cut pre-done so that we're not having to go back and forth like that. But I recognize that sometimes it's important to actually see the die cutting step. And it was important today to see what we're going to do with these legs. All right, so now we have this piece. Pop those little guys out. Okay, and I don't know about you, but I use this wonderful little tool. This was an Amazon find. It's actually what a lot of like mechanical type people use. This is a metal tray that is magnetic. This is where I keep my dies when I'm working on a project so that they don't go missing. You can see I have a bunch of the little hamburger dies in here. This has been the best little helpful crafting tool. One of the best that I can think of that I've started using several years ago. These tiny dies are very easy to go missing. And so if while you're working, they always go back in here when they're not actually on the die cut machine, it has saved me, I'm sure, lots of lost dies. All right, but because we have so much going on right now, I'm just gonna move that back out of the way. Okay, we have our grill. This is the piece we're actually going to use on the card. This is adorable as is, but if you, like me, would rather that the legs be a different color instead of the whole thing red, you have a couple of different options. So one of my Stamp Club members said that at home, she thinks that she will try to mask off the stamp so that she can stamp the legs in one color and the grill in another color. I think that is a valid option. I think that's a great technique to try. Another would be to, at this point, take a marker, perhaps the black Stampin' Blend, and you could just use the marker and carefully go over the legs. That also is a great option. I think this third option is the best one, but it did take the extra step of having to stamp the legs and then die cut that extra pair. So what I'm going to do is grab a pair of scissors, and you have two options here. You can decide what you're more comfortable with. One is to cut the legs free from here and then glue them onto the grill. And that will give you a red grill with gray legs. That's a great way to do it. The other option is to go ahead and just remove the legs from here. This way we don't have two layers of legs. I'm going to actually trim a teeny bit of this white, taking off the legs. So I'm trimming around the bottom edge of the grill. Again, you can decide if this is worth the extra step. If it's not, just leave it. It's still super cute. All right, if you've removed those, now we're going to take this set And as you can see, we're just going to glue it into place. It's really handy if you have a little bit here and you didn't stamp too close to the edge that you have no gray grill. That gives us something to apply our glue to. And look, this is the finished product that we're going to end up with. I think it's worth it. So here we go. Let's, oh, I got to pick up my little pup. Little Pinot is wanting to get on my chair and go to work with me. All right, she's up. We happen to have a little rainy day today, so there's a lot going on here in my studio. Well, it's not raining in the studio, so that's good, but I can see it out my windows. All right, so a little bit of glue there on the gray portion. Attach this to my red grill, and we have created the two-tone that I think looks really good and is worth that extra step. And then these are discarded. All right, so we're moving forward with our pieces. Now let's compare our flame. This one is with the Darling Duckling, and this one is with the Daffodil Delight. Not a huge difference. I think both are completely acceptable. Let me put them on a piece of white paper and see if that helps for you to be able to see it. And then you can decide, perhaps by looking at mine, which color you think is better. So if you think it's a toss-up, that's fair. This one obviously is the Darling Duckling. It's just a little bit more green in the yellow. So we're going to use this one today so that I have a card sample that is made with each. And let's see what we need to do next. Let's bring in our card base. This piece is going to go here. And I do recommend that before you go adding any adhesive, you hold your pieces in place to determine the placement. And here's why. This grill is a pretty large element, and you're going to want to make sure that it fits on the card without hanging off this edge. If it hangs off this edge, you're going to have a very difficult time getting it in the envelope if it's going in an envelope. So this needs to make sure that it stays lined up with the edge of the card, which means that it's going to come into your words a little bit, which is fine. But what you don't want to have happen is you glue this on first, way over here, and then you've caused a problem. So do lay it out a little bit first, just to get the idea of where everything needs to go. That is going to work for me. And then I'm going to only put glue on this, on the back side, on this part of the circle, and no glue over here because I don't want to seal my card shut on accident. And then what I'm going to do now that I've taken the time to carefully place this is I'm just going to make a little pencil mark, which nobody's going to see. I'm going to put it right there. That way, after I turn this over and put the glue, I can see right where this needs to go back. All right, again, the glue only goes behind the G and the C part, not behind the N part. And let's use dimensionals. You could use regular glue, that would work. But we're going to go ahead and add ours with some dimensionals. So now that I looked away, I'm going to double check. I don't want to put any of this where it doesn't belong. Okay. We can put this right into the correct spot now. So I recognize this is taking a little bit extra time today for our project, but some of those techniques and considering different color options can be very important. So it's fun to take a couple extra moments to talk about those parts of the card design. Okay, this is now attached only to that front flap, as you can see. All right, there's no adhesive here to accidentally seal it shut. And then we know that our grill is going to go on here just right, and we can go ahead and put it on as well. Now, let's talk about a couple other techniques. I heard at least two other creators talk about taking a craft knife, which is like an X-Acto blade, and making a slit here in the grill so that your fire will tuck down in it. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, let me show you. If you just place the flame on the grill the way it is, it kind of sticks up far. I mean, it looks like your grill is definitely on fire. So in order to avoid that, you can tuck it down inside the grill a little bit and have less flame. Now, when we have club and I have so many members here and everybody is stamping and creating, it's a little bit challenging to think about getting a mat and a craft knife out and having people do that. So we did not do that at club. But for those who wanted to, we took our scissors and just trimmed our fire down. Now we're coming back to why I said you want to make sure that you bring your orange up a little bit because we're actually cutting a little sliver of this off. If you had only added orange to the very, very edge, you would now be losing all your orange. So you can see that's a very small sliver that we cut off, but it makes our flame a little bit less high in the height so that when we put it on here, it doesn't look so over imposing on the grill. We could even take another teeny sliver off. I think I will. I have enough orange there. I'm going to take off a teeny bit more. And then I can attach this. And I think the perspective is really good at this point. There we go. All right, there's our flame and our completed grill, and it can go onto the card. And as we already determined, it's just going to cover the C a teeny bit. Like so. All right, very cute. Now, this is funny to me because this has happened every time that I've made this card. And I've made it a few times because I make my samples for club. Then, of course, while my members are creating their cards, we're talking about it. The thing that I'm talking about right now is the twine. I have some gray twine. And what would be great is if you had added your twine before putting this circle on. But I have never remembered to do that each time I've made this card. It always ends up being after the fact, which will still work because it will tuck under that little white piece. You will not have a problem. I have a card where I tied a bow. That's the first one that I showed you. On this one, I'm just going to tie a knot. So I'm just going to take my gray baker's twine. This is wrapped around. You can see it's just wrapped around right on the fold. And I was able to slide it under where those dimensionals are over here. It's not in the way. And I can tie my knot here at the top of the card. So if I wanted to tie a bow, I would have needed a longer length. In this case, I'm just going to do a knot, and I need an extra little grip here. Let's see if I have my tweezers just to hold on to that while I complete my knot. All right, like so. And then we'll just trim that. If you like the bow better, then by all means make a bow. This one, I just decided to do a knot. And when it's closed, it looks like that. Okay, we are moving right along. Now it's time to consider our hamburger. So, as I mentioned, there's lots of die cuts. The good news is you're going to save time because there's no stamping in creating this hamburger. It's all die cuts. So what we did in class is we had a bunch of scraps. I'm going to show you, I won't show you all of them, but let me give you an idea what this looked like. Let's get a Daffodil Delight and a lemon lime twist and a crumb cake. Okay, this will give you the idea. Okay, just little scraps. And back to our little metallic or magnetic bowl. All right, so what we did is we used crumb cake for the burger bun top and for the bun bottom. All right, then everybody was able to choose if they wanted the lemon lime twist green or garden green for their lettuce. And so we placed the lettuce die there. I think I have one of each to show you at the end. I do. All right, so there we have that. Then there were two different yellow options because I don't know. Do you think that the cheese is more crushed curry or Daffodil Delight? So we had a couple different yellow choices. And this strange looking die is for the cheese. All right, then there is an onion slice. And of course, everybody was able to determine if they wanted white or purple onion. The meat patty was cut out of early espresso cardstock. And then we've got a ketchup bottle, which we are going to stamp and die cut. So we're going to set that aside and do that in just a moment. All right, so with all of those little scraps of cardstock and dies, we came up with all of our pieces. So let me show you. You can have a light or a dark green lettuce. Which one do you like better? This one kind of looks more like romaine or green leaf, and this to me looks like iceberg. So you would have your lettuce. And then here is, I didn't cut out a purple onion for this video. Here is the white onion slice. And early espresso for the meat. And then we have the red tomato. Oh, where's my tomato die? I talked about that earlier, didn't I, when I was showing you the dies and said how easy they can disappear. All right, there's the tomato. And here's the tomato die. It was stuck to the bowl right where it belongs. See, that was great because we didn't lose it. All right, so you can see that. Now, I have a bin here with a whole bunch of little die cuts. Do you see that? Because I went ahead and die cut a bunch of those, so I will be ready for burger cards in the future. All right, so we have our pieces. We're going to do the lighter lettuce. We need onion, meat, tomato, and then we'll pull these out from the ones that I already die cut. All these little dies are going into my magnetic tray. We need a bun, top and bottom. And we need cheese. And let's see, I think we've got all the other parts. Okay, now for that tomato, we're going to take that little scrap that we've been working on here. Let's just go back to that. This little scrap of cardstock that we already stamped on. And we'll stamp our ketchup on here. Like so. Put the die on. I would probably tape it into place if you're worried about it shifting. Run it through your die cut machine, and then you will end up with your tomato ketchup. Okay, so there's that. All right, to build your hamburger, I highly recommend that you pull out your silicone sheet, this little silicone mat. This will be of great help because we're going to build the hamburger, and there's definitely going to be a little extra glue, and we don't want it sticking to our tabletop or our scratch paper. We want to be able to peel it up easily after we've built it. So definitely grab your silicone mat for this next step. You can use little glue dots if you prefer. I think Stampin' Seal would be a little bit challenging because of the tininess of the pieces. And then let me also mention another technique. Let's start this and then I'll tell you about the second option, the second technique. So I've got my bottom bun and I'm just going to literally put a teeny bit of glue there and add the meat to it. So you can see now where it's very possible that some of that glue is going to ooze out on the back side. So our silicone sheet is going to completely be the lifesaver for this. All right, so that's in place. Now, the other technique that I mentioned, if you still feel like you don't have enough control with your liquid glue to get tiny little drops, you can definitely do this. Put a little puddle on your silicone sheet and then grab a toothpick. Now, I don't have a toothpick here at my desk, so we're going to use this in lieu of a toothpick. But what you can do is you can pick up some of the glue with your toothpick and then you add it. See how carefully and tiny area you can get by doing it that way. And then we're going to add our cheese on top of the meat. So a lot of gals appreciated the little glue puddle and toothpick method for this. All right, on top of the cheese, and of course you can build this any way that you think it goes, but I'm going to put my lettuce next. So either straight from the glue bottle, or you can use your toothpick and this and add a little bit of glue. Now, of course, I'm going to wash this off when I'm finished because there's glue on the end of my take your pick tool. Okay, so lettuce is next. Look at how cute. As you go layer by layer, this just is off the chart cute. All right, we've got our lettuce. Now we have our onion and our pickle. I mean, onion and tomato. Oh, that was actually a good mistake to make because there is a pickle die. If you wanted to add pickles, I feel like in stacking the burger this way, the pickle didn't really show up good enough, but that is an option for you if you want to have pickles, or even a pickle on the side would be really cute. All right, let's do our onion and our tomato. So I'm going to do them almost side by side. Since they're little half slices, I think that that works. I don't want to completely cover my lettuce. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit more there and add the tomato like that. This was extra lettuce. Remember, we did the light green and the dark green, so we don't need to add this. And then last is going to go our bun. Now, depending on how high that is going to stick up, we can trim it if we need to, but let's go ahead and put the bun in place and see if we even need to worry about it. Look, we don't have to worry about it at all. It's adorable. So let's add that last final piece. And I have been pressing this down. So for sure, if I had done this on a piece of paper, my hamburger would now be stuck to the paper because of the gluiness on the back sides of all of this. Okay, I'm going to let that sit for just a moment to just kind of meld together. And let's talk about our circle placement. So this circle is going to go on the inside and it's going to have our burger and ketchup on it. What we don't want to do, I'm helping you avoid a mistake, is to just take your circle and pick a spot and put it down, because when you close this, you want that circle to be hidden. Now this would not have been too bad, but what if my circle had been a little bit more this way, and then it does not look right. So you want this in place as we've done. Then you're going to use it as placement for the circle inside. And I'm going to do the same thing. I didn't do this on my cards, but I think it would be helpful in this tutorial to just take that pencil, make a few little guide marks of where that's going to go. As long as I am on that side of the marks, I'm going to be fine with the placement of this. So let's add our glue and stick it on. And then before I really, really press it in place, I'm going to give it one last check. Great. All right. So now that circle is concealed when the card is shut and it's not sticking out, it doesn't look funny. And then if you need to, you can erase those marks. Mine are barely visible, especially on the gray paper. Okay, now we're going to peel this guy off of the sheet here. And you can see that there is glue right there. That would have caused it to be stuck to whatever surface. So I can't highly enough say how great the silicone mat is for this method. All right, our burger is going to go right here on this circle, just leaving enough space for you to sign or say a little something. We've already got the Grillin and Chillin on the front. And then we have our ketchup bottle. Now you can decide these pieces can go onto the white circle flat, or you can choose to pop them up. And I'm going to pop mine up. I am using some small dimensionals. I'm just looking for them. Here we go. All right, here's some minis. So I'll use, by the way, I'm going to move this out of the way. This will dry and it ends up just balling up and going away. This little puddle will also dry eventually and I'll be able to rub it and it will ball up and go away. So we're going to set this aside for now because we are done with that. Here is my sheet of mini dimensionals and I'll use one of these on the back of the ketchup bottle. And then we'll use a couple of dimensionals on the back of our burger. Another nice thing about this, whether you glue this down with your liquid glue or you use dimensionals, it also adds some extra staying power to all of those layers that you glued together. All right, let's put those into place on our card. As I said, this was not an original design. I did see two other people do similar cards. So I do like to point that out. Often my card designs for club are my original designs, or you know how we all case things, copy and share everything, also known as copy and share with edits, or copy and share elements. Depending on how much you're copying what you saw. I too do that. I think it's a great way to get um, some inspiration. But I did want to mention that this was not my original design, and I thought that it was cute enough to copy. There you have our adorable Grillin and Chillin card. This was Stamp Club, April 2026, Project 1. Be sure and watch for the other projects. And also, below this video, there is a description box. Now, depending on how you watch the videos, will determine how to find that box. If you are watching on your computer or your laptop, it generally will be below the video. There will be a couple of sentences of description, and then you'll see the words more or see more. If you click on that, then that description box opens up to reveal all of the content that I've added there for you. If you are watching on your television, then typically there's a little bubble or button underneath the video that says description. You have to actually maneuver your screen so that you can click on the word description, and then that box will open up so that you can find all of the information and the links that I have set up for you. So I know that can be confusing. It's a little bit harder to find if you're watching on your television, and about 45% of my viewers are watching on TV. So I did want to mention that to you today. So I'm going to put some information for you there, as I do always. I absolutely love to get your comments and feedback, and I read every single one of them. So do contact me, leave a comment, let me know what you liked about the project. Let me know if you're going to make one. And last of all, be sure and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a video that I put out here for you. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video.